FM synthesis, which is the short for frequency modulation, was developed in the 60s by John Chowning, and instead of adding two sine waves together, today we are going to learn to modify one using another one to control it in a process that is more like multiplication. The basic building block in FM synthesis is an operator. An operator is comprised of an oscillator, an amplifier, and an envelope. And we will work with two types of operators, modulators and carriers. The carrier is the wave that we can actually hear, and the wave we are going to control. And we are going to control its pitch with the modulator. So imagine that you have a given sine wave as a carrier, which has a constant pitch. Now imagine using another sine wave that we cannot hear, that is going to take this sine wave's pitch up and down, creating new harmonics. So the basic vocabulary that we need for FM synthesis are carrier, modulator, operator, and algorithms. Algorithms are basically combinations of operators and carriers. So in this case we had operator 1 as the carrier and operator 2 as the modulator, but we can expand and add more operators. In this case operator 4 will be controlling operator 3, and the result will be controlling 2, and the result will be controlling 1. But we can imagine different and more complex combinations. For example, in this case we have two parallels running and two carriers, each one with its modulators. So in Ableton Live I have here the instrument operator, and here we will find all the same components. We have the algorithms, the operators, and for example, if we select the first algorithm, we will have A as the carrier, and D modulating C, C modulating B, and B modulating A. So what is the difference between additive synthesis and FM synthesis? Let me select the algorithm for additive synthesis, which is this one. Additive synthesis adds simpler sound waves together to create complex sounds. It mixes the fundamental bass frequencies with new overtones and partials. While FM synthesis uses one sine wave to modulate another sine wave. So in this case, A will be the carrier, and we will modulate A with B. If it's still not clear, let me show you in a more graphic way with this LFO. So instead of using B to modulate A, I'm gonna use this LFO, which is a little bit more graphic. And I'm gonna use the sine wave produced by the LFO to control the knob of the frequency in operator A. We can see how the frequencies go up and down, but if we accelerate the rate, maybe a little bit less depth, we will have a kind of vibrato effect. And if we accelerate the rate of the frequency of the LFO modulator, the vibrato will narrow and narrow to become imperceptible, which will result in a complex sound with new harmonics. To explain it in a different way, in additive synthesis, we add waves together. Whereas in FM synthesis, imagine that you could use the vibration of a sound to control the pitch of the second one. it would be as if I could do this movement, putting up and down the knob 1,000 times per second in a constant way. That would be a type of frequency modulation. Of course, we can apply the same logic in the operator instrument. So let's play 220 Hz as the carrier. In the operator B or the modulator, we're going to play the same frequency, that is 220 Hz or A3. So this is the carrier alone, and as we take the amplitude of the second oscillator up, new frequencies and new harmonics will emerge. But if we slow down this knob, we can begin to feel this vibrato effect that we reproduce in the LFO. So when it comes to creating complex sounds using FM synthesis, there are two important factors to consider. The first one is amplitude. Here, if we take up the volume of the modulator B, we will see how new harmonics emerge, and the sound begins to be more rough. It changes from a sine wave to something that sounds very similar to a sawtooth wave. So the second important factor will be ratio. And ratio is the difference of frequencies of your modulator. In this case, B. To illustrate this, I'm gonna play A3 or 220 Hz in the first operator, the carrier. And we will control this carrier again with the operator B. So if we set course in operator B to 1, we will have the same frequency as the carrier and as the modulator. So we have 220 Hz in both operators. But if we set course to 2, then we will be modulating 220 Hz with 440 Hz, or the same note in a higher octave. And the same goes for course 3. Then we will have 220 Hz or the note A3 in operator A, and 660 Hz or the note E5 in operator C, which are in an interval of an octave and a perfect fifth. And if we select 4, then we will have 220 and 880 Hz, or the same note but 2 octaves up. And this goes on. In course 5, we will have 220 multiplied by 5, that is 1100 Hz. If we want to generate more inharmonic sounds, we can just use more strange and complex ratios. One last thing to consider is that in classic FM synthesis, we only use sine waves as operators, but in digital software, we can use other types of waveforms as sawtooth waves or triangle or square waves, or even we can create our own wave shapes using the panel of operator to draw some wave shapes. This was the basics of FM synthesis. Thanks for watching.